What is up, guys? We're here again with another episode of the Cage MMA podcast featuring AJ and the Savages. We're talking about UFC Fight Night, Burns versus Woodley. First fight on the main card tier. Let us know what it is.
So first off, we got Mackenzie Dern, the jiu-jitsu, just savage, going against Hannah Cifers.
Hannah Cifers, Mackenzie Dern. Interesting matchup. Striker versus grappler in a way, I would say. Mackenzie Dern is a very skilled Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioner. She's only lost one fight in her career, I believe. Cifers, I will say I don't know as much about, but I do know she's a bit more of a striker who I'm not saying is bad on the ground, but it's a bit of a mismatch when it hits the floor, I think.
Yeah. And looking at Cifers' record, she's coming off a loss as well. And you mentioned, Adrian, you mentioned Mackenzie's loss that she had. That was actually her last fight she had against Amanda Ribas, I believe. Yeah. So that is the loss that I think you were talking about. But before that, out of the numerous victories she had, half of them were by submission. So
that's impressive.
Hannah Cifers, she's going to have to really come in with at least a good defense and just, at the very basic, just takedown defense, if not a better knowledge of jiu-jitsu and how to stay alive on the ground.
And question for you, who was Cifers' last fight against?
Cifers had gone against Angela Hill, and she lost to ground and pound in the second round.
Okay, so and Angela Hill, very impressive, fought last week or 2 weeks ago now against Claudia Gadelha, gave her a very tough fight, lost a close decision. I feel like when you look at this matchup, it seems like this is for Dern to win. You know, Dern seems like a significant favorite in this fight. I feel that Dern stylistically matches up very well here. Avery, you have any takes that you want to add?
I basically agree with what you said, AJ. There's nothing too much to say. Dern's going to take this fight to the ground. She's going to be able to submit Cifers, and that's all I can really say. Cifers, yes, a good striker, but nothing too crazy that Dern's probably hasn't really seen. She's 7-1 for a reason, and her last loss wasn't even too bad. So I'd take Dern.
Dern, yeah. I'm going to have to agree. I think that it's probably a unanimous vote. I believe Dern could submit her in the first round. Very possible. But if not, I believe she does stop her by the third via submission. That would be my prediction.
And just being a little bit of a devil's advocate here, so I'd say the only chance Cifers really has is to go to decision. I mean, of all the fights she's done, most of them that she has won has been either through stoppage due to striking or because of decisions that she won. The losses she's had on her record are usually from ground. Like her last
that's a bad matchup.
Were both ground and pound. One before that was because of a rear naked choke. So the jiu-jitsu is what I think is really going to be the tipping point of this matchup. And
she always stands a puncher's chance, but ultimately,
I just got to give it to Dern just because I know she's going to have that expertise and she's going to take control of the matchup and use that to her advantage.
Absolutely. Agreed 100%. What is the next fight?
Next up, we have Roosevelt Roberts against Brock Weaver.
Okay, so this is interesting. Brock Weaver was on Dana White's Contender Series. He has had a lot of fights, a lot of experience, very tough guy. I actually sparred in boxing against a guy that knocked him out. Funny enough, bro. How crazy is that? Yeah. Because I was like, that's crazy. So, I feel like Brock Weaver is a pretty good fighter, though. He's very durable. He's tough. Roosevelt Roberts, on the other hand, another skill fighter. Could you give me both of their last opponents?
Yeah. So Roberts had gone against Alexander Yakovlev. Yeah.
And then he won that fight?
Yeah, he won that fight by decision.
Okay.
So, and then Brock Weaver, he went against Rodrigo Vargas by I'm going to need an explanation on this because I don't know, but he won by illegal knee.
So that means that he got a win by disqualification. The other guy hit him with an illegal shot.
Okay.
So with this matchup, it's interesting. I will say I don't know that much about Roosevelt Roberts. I haven't seen too much of him, seen only a minimal amount. But I know that Brock Weaver is a game fighter that comes to scrap. Now, I may have a bias towards him having a connection down the line there with him too, but I definitely see Brock Weaver as a guy that's really scrappy and is a good addition to the UFC roster. And I feel like interesting matchup here, but I will say I think Brock Weaver does take it. Avery, you want to add some things there?
Me personally, I actually think Roosevelt Roberts will take it. I
Okay,
see Brock Weaver as his style lasts as long as his chin lasts.
yes.
So if he's able to scrap and keep going, yeah, Weaver will take it. But I feel like Roosevelt Roberts is that technical striker that's actually a bad matchup for Weaver. So if he's able to stay outside, and he's a long striker. I know he's only has an inch on him, but he has a pretty long wingspan. So is he able to stay safe and stay to his technical striking skills? I think Roosevelt Roberts will take it.
That's good. Yeah, that's exciting. So I
And I'm
like
gonna
the
have
different
to
picks.
agree with Avery on this.
You
I'm
going
gonna
Roosevelt?
also go with Roosevelt just because. I mean, I also see he's a pretty well-rounded fighter. A lot of his victories have come from the ground game as well. So it always helps when a fighter has a good knowledge of the ground, especially in MMA. I mean, obviously many fights can be decided just by the ground game. So having that experience on the ground versus Brock Weaver, who has shown a lot of decisions in his victories and seems more of like an endurance and almost a point-based fighter. So because of that, I just have to give it to Roberts in maybe a second round, early third round stoppage.
Okay. Very possible. Very possible. Intriguing matchup that I'm excited to see if I'm way off or not in this one.
Yeah.
We got a split bet on this one, you know?
Split one, that's it.
We'll
What's
see
the
what
next
happens.
one there?
So I'm gonna possibly butcher both of these names, so help me out here. But
Okay,
it's
okay.
Billy Quarantillo.
Billy Quarantillo?
Yeah.
Billy Q from The Ultimate Fighter. We can just call him that.
Yeah,
Okay.
Billy Q. We'll call him
Billy
that.
Q.
And
Billy
then
Q.
going against Spike Carlisle.
Spike Carlisle and Billy Q.
Yes,
Okay, so
sir.
Billy Q is actually a Tampa guy, at least he was at one point. Good jiu-jitsu base. Spike, another one that I don't know as well, just off the top of my head thinking of him now. But I think that he's legit. Both guys are legit. Now, what can you give me Spike's last fight? Because I want to make sure that I'm not twisting him in my mind.
Spike's last fight was against Elon Cruz, and he won that fight by elbows and ground and pound in round one. Minute and a half into round one.
That's impressive. And what was Billy Q's last fight?
Billy Q had gone against Jacob Kilburn and he won by triangle choke in the second round.
Interesting. So if it goes to the ground, just off of my knowledge of Billy Q's jiu-jitsu skill, I lean Billy Q. You know, he's a good grappler with a good jiu-jitsu base and can attack with submissions and has shown to tap people out rather than just having defensive grappling.
Yeah. And I mean, Spike, I don't know much about either of these fighters either, but they're both coming off great win streaks. I think, so Billy Q has a 6-fight win streak going on right now, and Spike Carlisle has 5. So they're both at the same level, and this is going to be a very upsetting fight for one of them.
The prospect matchup, and that's why it's exciting to see. I will say this card is interesting to me. I'm not trying to say that this card is thin, but it definitely is not as stacked as the past few cards that we've had, because these are guys that maybe more normally would be a prelim, right? But this is a very big opportunity. They're going to be on ESPN, so these guys have a huge chance to really show their vast array of skills. So now is the time to really go hard for 2 prospects like this. I am going to pick Billy Q, biased towards he's local. I've seen him fight more, and the jiu-jitsu game. So I'm going to say Billy Q gets it done. I am going to go with a submission. Now, we'll find out when the fight actually happens.
I agree. I don't really know too much about either fighter, but I know more about Billy Q just because I've seen a couple more fights, and I'm a little biased because, of course, he's hometown hero. So I'm going to go with Billy Q for now.
And I'm gonna go with the bandwagon right here. I'm just gonna stick with our boy Billy Q.
Billy Q,
and hopefully
baby.
He can bring one home for Tampa.
That's it. Rap Billy Q. That's it.
Okay, so moving along to the co-main event now of the night is gonna be.
It happened quick. This co-main event. It's right there.
It's already here. It's already here, man. So these are 2 difficult names again. So
I got you.
We
Augusto Sakai versus Blagoy Ivanov.
Okay, there we go.
So both of these guys have fought in Bellator. Blagoy Ivanov was actually the World Series of Fighting heavyweight champion. Augusto Sakai was like a solid contender in the Bellator heavyweight division, but never really broke past a certain limit. My opinion on these guys is kind of weird. Like, enjoyed watching Blagoy more because he has an interesting story. Like he was stabbed and he lost like 100 pounds and he was able to come back from that and become a champion in World Series of Fighting, which is just amazing, you know? Whereas Augusto Sakai's a good fighter, but I feel like they don't always pull the trigger. I remember I watched a fight of him in Bellator. He had a draw. Forget the guy's name that he went against. Wasn't too impressive. Haven't seen super amounts of finishing ability. Granted, Augusto Sakai, I believe, is coming off of a 50-second knockout win against Marcin Tybura, if on the top of my head. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But Blagoy Ivanov is a very serious fighter. He's a good fighter, good grappler. He trains with, I believe, Daniel Cormier. He beat Fedor Emelianenko in a combat sambo match. So that's something to keep in mind. Augusto Sakai is a good fighter. But I'm gonna be honest, man. I don't know why he has never turned me like as a fan. I've watched him fight several times, and I remember it, but I remember never being like, wow, these are good fights. I remember thinking like, man, nothing's happening. It's not much. Not really like the style that brings this entertainment, at least from him in the past when I've seen him. Now, granted, more of the times I've seen him were in Bellator fights a few years ago. Split decision loss to Czech Congo, and I believe that was probably his last Bellator fight, something like that. I mean, Avery, you guys have any thoughts on this one? I don't want to just take up the whole time talking here.
I mean, I think Ivanov's gonna take it.
Yeah.
He's on a 2-fight win streak. I take that back. He lost to Derek Lewis, but prior he beat Tuivasa and he beat Ben Rothwell, and then prior to that he lost to Junior Dos Santos,
which is very forgivable.
Which is not a bad loss, and even losing to Derek Lewis isn't even a bad loss.
He barely lost that fight, dude. Split decisions that could have gone either way. And Augusto Sakai, I hate to really hate on a guy, but I always felt like he couldn't really pull the trigger and never really turned it on. So to me, I think Ivanov is just going to be better than him. I will say I am worried that this fight does not deliver in terms of entertainment. If you're a casual fan, you're there to see a war, I'm really going to be honest with you. I don't know if this fight will do it. I hope I'm wrong, but I really have a feeling that this isn't the fight that's going to be an awesome fight. We've seen a lot with the heavyweights, man. A lot of more lower end of the top 15 to beyond don't bring that much entertainment when they're overweight, right? They're slower. It's a slower paced fight. So to the casual eye, that's going to be a very boring matchup, especially if it's a very clinch heavy fight and they're just against. It's hard. It's grueling. It's extremely difficult. It's an elite level of skill set, but in terms of for your eye to see, it's not entertaining.
If they're not scrappy, then it's going to be a tough night to watch.
I'm going to be honest. I predict Ivanov takes a decision. I predict that you may be able to get popcorn during this fight.
I agree.
I'm be honest.
It'll be a nice break before the main event.
Yeah. Oh, it is. And there's some awesome fights that we didn't even talk about on the prelims. Like the prelims are guys that you guys probably wouldn't know. I had to do research on like all of them, and awesome. Like you're gonna see some wars. But when it comes to that co-main event, I really will say it could be a big letdown. 100%. You guys have a different prediction, or you agreeing with that one?
I'm gonna agree with Ivanov taking it if it goes the distance. But how would you say Augusto's punching power is? Because I've seen he's had a couple of good knockouts lasting under even a minute and a half. So
the thing is, right? So he got a quick knockout in his last fight, but before then, I had never seen him put anybody down, and I'd watched him fight several times outside of the UFC. It was like frustrating. I'm like, this guy's undefeated. He has this great record. He's supposed to be really good. He's super tall, long, heavy, but he doesn't finish. And I'm like, man, like is something just missing? Yeah. I don't know. I just haven't really been like overly impressed by him, to be 100% honest with you. Whereas Blagoy, I have been impressed at least with his grappling ability. You know, he's shown that.
Okay. Yeah, I think I'm gonna go with Ivanov as well. I mean, I don't really know much about either of these fighters. They're both new to me, so I'm just gonna go with what I'm hearing about Ivanov because he sounds like the right bet right now.
I think he is. Yeah, let's get to the main.
A main event: Tyrone Woodley versus Gilbert Burns.
Did you just call him Tyrone Woodley?
Tyrone.
Did you just call him Tyrone? Tyron Woodley.
Tyrone.
Remember something like that? I think he even got annoyed when people call him that. Interesting matchup, man. You have two top guys at welterweight. One was one of the best champions we've seen at welterweight. The other is a tough, solid guy that's been around for a while who's on a pretty impressive streak. But at the end of the day, Gilbert Burns has not fought the competition that Tyron Woodley has fought. his biggest win is Damian Maia. Yeah, sure, he knocked him out and Woodley took a decision over him, but that was also how many losses had Damian Maia taken. Previously, when Woodley fought him, Damian Maia was the scariest guy around. He'd been tapping everybody out, and Woodley was able to dominate him. On the feet, of course, not on the ground. Whereas Burns had fought a Damian Maia who had been beat up, who had lost a lot of fights. Like, he'd been through the ringer of tough opponents a bit.
For sure.
So I have a question for you about this. How would you say Woodley's like jiu-jitsu is? Do you think he's going to have a good amount of defense on the ground? Is he
He's not getting
experienced?
tapped.
Okay, because I see Gilbert Burns. He's been doing a lot of grappling bouts recently, so he's been kind of honing in those skills. So I didn't know.
The thing is, you're not going to tap Woodley. I'm going to be honest with you. This might sound air. I don't think he taps. I don't think he has a chance to tap Woodley. Woodley's jacked. He's strong as hell, and he's an elite wrestler. Woodley, I'm going to be honest with you, against 9 out of 10 of the top 10, the only guy that was able to beat him in grappling was obviously Kamaru Usman, who's now the world champ. But he is an elite level grappler. I mean, I'm not worried about him getting tapped. Now, he's not super offensive with submissions. Granted, he beat Darren Till by submission, but he's more of like, I'm going to drop you with my hands type of guy. Like, he'll knock people out, man. He's a very big puncher. I just feel like Gilbert Burns has been a little bit rushed into this fight. I'm going to be honest with you. I think this is not – I don't know, man. I mean, he might prove me wrong, but if it's the Tyron Woodley that was champion at one point, I think he starches Burns. He, like, wipes the floor with him. Like, this is, like, almost like it's not even the same type of skill set here. Like, we're looking at, like, world champion versus top 15.
I agree.
I would agree with that.
If world champion Tyron Woodley shows up, Gilbert Burns is not going to –
he doesn't have a chance. I don't think he goes past the third round.
No chance.
Even though I love Gilbert Burns, I've been watching his fights, and he is an absolute stud, but he has never fought anybody like Tyron Woodley. Tyron Woodley has held his belt for so long for a reason.
Right. And then he lost to one guy. And one guy. So to me, I just think Burns is a little bit rushed. It was good timing. I think Burns has a huge opportunity because if he wins, that starts him right into the top. But I don't see him winning. I think, like, the only way he wins is if Woodley doesn't show up, which he has in the past. But he will because he's coming off of a loss. I guarantee you he's training extremely hard. He's very pissed off about that loss. I think he beats up Gilbert Burns pretty bad. I think he dominates that fight. I don't think Burns – I think Burns is good. It's going to be a good fight. But I just think Burns is rushed into this fight, man. He just beat Damian Maia, who's 40 years old. And now you're fighting Tyron Woodley. Yes, Tyron Woodley's old too. But there's levels to this shit, man.
But he gets to go to decision?
I don't think so. I don't know. I think there's a chance that we see Woodley knock him out. This is a hungry Woodley, man. This is not a Woodley that's happy with his last performance at all. Like, lost every round against Usman badly. And he didn't get a title rematch right away. He's been waiting, and now he's coming back against Burns, who's on a pretty good streak. And I think this is a good showcase for Woodley to show that he's back. I mean, if he loses this fight, I believe he should retire from the sport, 100%. Because Gilbert Burns' level and his level at prime time, there's a big difference. Like, it's almost like there's certain matchups that it's just that guy is so elite that you just know. So if he loses this fight, then I believe Woodley's time is over. Like, I think it's all right. You know what? It's time to really call it. But with a victory, he's right back in the mix for the title. He could possibly even move up a weight class and fight for a world title.
Fight in middleweight.
That'd be interesting. I mean, I don't think he'd beat Adesanya. I think Adesanya would be too much for him, but it'd be an interesting matchup.
That'd be a nice fight. Now, do you think – I think if he moves up to 185, he will want to get Kamaru in the rematch and then win and then move up to 185.
That would be the most optimal way. I think more likely an Usman rematch over moving up to 185. The thing with Usman is we're really seeing him, like, struggling to get this fight made. Now, Masvidal is saying that it's Usman's side. Usman's saying it's Masvidal's side. At the end of the day, who the hell knows? But we're not seeing Usman fighting yet. I mean, he might fight Conor McGregor.
Yeah,
that's
interesting. I heard him. He was. I think he was on an interview with Ariel Helwani, and he said he wanted to fight McGregor. So
he can do it. He said he's willing to fight him.
He
said if the number's right. He kept bringing it up. If the price is right, I'll rumble.
If the price is right.
At the end of the day, though, there isn't. If you really think about it, right, there really isn't that much money to make right now. I mean, the UFC has no live gate right now. So, like, they're kind of screwed there a bit, you know?
Yeah. Which kind of sucks. I mean, We'll see. I mean, if the right fight, if the right fight happens, I mean, if they really want a money fight, they'll really just put Conor McGregor with Usman, and they'll just make as much money as they really need, just because it's a McGregor fight. It's a McGregor card, and they could throw extra people in the main card, a decent prelim, it'll sell like crazy.
Oh, it'll sell like hell. Yeah, the McGregor will just sell. I think the fight to be made though is definitely Usman Masvidal, but who knows if we're gonna get it. If Woodley wins, he puts himself right in the mix. I like.
Now,
Woodley
do you think he would get the rematch immediately?
If he wins?
Yeah.
Very scenario based. So if the fight with Masvidal's off the table, if the fight with McGregor's off the table, if the rematch with Covington's off the table, now I could see the rematch. But I don't think the rematch sells that well. To be 100% honest, if I'm a promoter and I'm trying to make the most money, it's not that Woodley doesn't sell. Usman has struggled a bit selling, but it's also the fact that their first fight was extremely one-sided. Like, it was totally all Usman. It was no question about it. So it's going to be a hard rematch to sell, man. It's one of those things. But being the former champ, you say, oh, I've had this many wins. Look at my streak. I deserve it. I had a bad night, whatever. We could see that.
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't say that it would be like a fight that people would be clamoring to see. Like, I don't think people are begging to see Woodley and Usman fight again. I don't know if you guys are.
There's like 5 fights off the top of my head we'd rather see as a main event.
Exactly. It would be a fun fight. I'd rather actually see him fight Colby, though. I wanted to see him fight Colby Covington now. I didn't want to see the Burns fight. Like, I'm not trying to shit on Burns, but I just have these feelings like, man, why not give us the best fight? Why are you giving us him and Burns? Like, I really hate that I'm shitting on Burns, but, dude, I don't believe he's in the same class. Like, I think that Burns he's 7. He's ranked 7 in the world, but who has he beaten besides Damian Maia in that top, right? He beat Gunnar Nelson. Like, he hasn't – I don't even know stylistically how does he match up against Neil Magny. The thing is, styles make fights at the end of the day, and I think Woodley should dominate. I think Woodley gets him out of there. That's my prediction. I'm predicting a 3rd-round knockout. Earliest it could be would be first, obviously, but realistically, I do give a chance for it to get to the 3rd round, and we could see him get him out of there.
I agree.
Could be second.
I would agree with that too. I think the only chance Burns would have had would have been his jiu-jitsu, but hearing how good Woodley's defense is going to be in that area,
Woodley's not getting taken down.
Oh yeah,
he's going to end up dominating him on his feet.
Yeah.
The only way it's going on the ground is when Woodley wants to go for a takedown.
Right. If Woodley says, hey, we're going down. So to me, Burns' striking is decent, but it's not at that level, man.
It's not enough.
And he fought at lightweight before, man. He was a lightweight just recently. He lost to Dan Hooker recently at lightweight. So to come up and fight a big monster in Woodley, I just don't see him winning that fight.
That just seems like the opposite of what you should be doing.
Like, it does, yeah. I just have a hard time envisioning that fight going well for Gilbert Burns, man. I think he gets beat up. But then from there on out, if Woodley wins, we have more good opportunities. The UFC in the back of their mind, they're like, shit, if Woodley loses, now we're killing the Covington fight. We're killing the chance of an Usman rematch. Like, so the Gilbert Burns fight, I believed, could have waited. They could have said, let's not do the Burns fight because let's get Covington and him, or let's get him and somebody else. And if he loses, at least we still have more options. Whereas now, that Burns fight was always there. He could fight Covington and lose and then fight Gilbert Burns. But now you fight Burns, you better win. Because if you lose to Gilbert Burns, you are going way back in the ranks. It's going to take you so long to get back at 38 years old. I don't think it's realistic.
Yeah, and they could have built up. Yeah, and they could have built up Gilbert Burns' career.
Dude, to the casual eye, he doesn't have that fan lore. I mean, does anybody, if you ask most people, not that many people would know who he is. I mean, MMA fans are probably, oh yeah, I think I know him. But it's just like he didn't have that hype. He beat Damian Maia. Yeah, who else does he beat, you know? Yeah. It's one of those things, though. Sometimes the UFC just has to get fights together. They give a guy a chance, and maybe he shocks the world and ends up building a name for himself.
Mm-hmm. And then if you look at all the promotional videos, I mean, they will literally bring out the best in Gilbert Burns because nobody knows who he is. But then if you but they won't show like Woodley's past fights because everybody knows who Tyron Woodley is. But they don't know who Gilbert Burns is. So they're gonna show him who he is. But they could have continued to build him up. Like right now, he's on 5-fight win streak. He could have had 6, 7, 8 win streak.
But look at that 5-fight win streak. I want you to look through the names, bro. Give me who's the names, right? And make sure.
So we got Damian Maia, we got Gunnar Nelson, Alexei Kunchenko, Mike Davis, and Oliver Aubin Mercier.
Mercier. Okay,
And then
so
lost to Dan Hooker right before that.
Dan Hooker's a solid lightweight, so it's okay. But Ivan Mercier, I don't even know if he's in the UFC any longer. If he is, he's still at lightweight. Mike Davis, if it was like new to the octagon. Then whoever who was the other guy you said?
Alexei Kunchenko.
Alexei Kuchenko. Like these guys are decent, but they're not Tyron Woodley. I mean, like they're not even in his they're not at his level. So I don't think he has that experience, man. And when you don't have experience taking on elite talent, it's gonna be scary. Like this is a huge step. You're fighting the guy who was the champion like a year and a half, 2 years ago. Like this guy was considered this guy might be the greatest welterweight of all time. And that's the fight he's taking. Scary matchup, man. Scary proposition.
He's gonna have to come in ready for a fucking brawl, man.
He better be ready for death.
Woodley is gonna come in there hungry, like you mentioned earlier. Like
he's got to be ready to die.
He's got a lot of things he wants to build back towards. So he's got that drive. So it's a question of what is Burns driving him.
Yeah, that's true, 100%. Well, I think that's a good podcast for today, guys. I appreciate everybody for watching this. The post-fight show is finished, the pre-fight show is finished, but stay tuned for the post-fight show because we're definitely going to have one. AJ and the Savages sign
Like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe, baby.
Like and subscribe.